Hey, Mrs. Spatola here. Here are the answers from last night's homework, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Notice that 7 and 8 were switch words. I know this is a lot all at once, but try your best with this. Now, as you go down to the rest of the page, it says that sometimes you will have to write the expression in words. So here are some examples. A, B, C, and D give all 4 different operations. So hopefully when you completed numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the bottom, you were able to be successful. Also, please note that there are other possible answers. So please make sure if you're not sure of one of the answers that you had, you can ask in class on Thursday. Don't forget, you have a quiz coming up. In the last lesson, we focused on translating algebraic expressions. In this lesson, we're actually going to be evaluating these algebraic expressions. So what exactly does that mean? Well, how can you evaluate algebraic expressions? We're going to be looking at a concept today, boys and girls, called substitution. Okay, think about a substitute. When a teacher's not in, who fills in for the teacher? The substitute. So this concept of evaluating algebraic expressions will focus on the concept of substitute. If we look over at the info box on the right here, we can see an example of actually what we will be doing today. So take a look. It says evaluate. So you're going to solve this problem. And the problem is actually 2x plus 3 when x is equal to 3. So what's going to happen is they're going to give you an algebraic expression, and then they're going to give you the value of that expression. And what you're going to do is actually just plug it in. You're going to plug in the 3 for the value of x and multiply. Remember, when a number is next to a variable, it means to multiply. And we're going to talk about plopping and dropping, which is something you definitely don't want to do. So the solution for this particular problem here, we're going to substitute in the 3 for the letter x, and then we're going to continue to solve. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 3, we wind up with a final answer of 9. And that's basically a summary of what today's lesson is going to look like. Before we go on, let's take a look at the do now. Remember, these do now questions will definitely be showing up, hint, hint, on an assessment that you have next week. Number 1, write 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 in exponential form. So what exactly does that mean? It means to write it with an exponent. Pause the video and give it a shot. And if you solved it correctly, it's 3 to the 5th power. The exponent is the 5. Number 2, true or false? Multiplication always comes before division when following the order of operations. Be really careful. I know I've said this before. Anytime you see a question or a statement, especially with a true-false, that has the words always or never in it, be very, very suspicious. What do you think? True or false? If you said false, then you're absolutely correct. Now let's continue with our key terms. Some of these are review from previous lessons, and some may be new. The term evaluate means to solve. So when you see the word evaluate, it means to solve. Next one is the term coefficient. The coefficient is the number next to the variable that is multiplied by the variable. For example, 7w. A trick name for the word coefficient is co-pilot. Think about it. A co-pilot, what does a co-pilot do? A co-pilot sits next to the pilot. Okay, so coefficient, co-pilot. The coefficient is the number that is next to the variable. So if I have 7w as my example, the coefficient is going to be the 7. One more. Let's do another example of coefficient. If I had 8x what would be the coefficient? The coefficient would be the 8, and the variable would be the x. Good. Next word or term is substitute. When we substitute, here's the big trick. You're going to replace the variable, replace the letter with the value given. That will be coming up in some of the problems below. And a review, there are two types of expressions. The first is numerical, and the next one is algebraic. What are the differences between numerical expressions and algebraic expressions? Well, when we see the word numerical, we think of the word number or the term number, numerical number. So if it's a numerical expression, it's numbers only. It's numbers and operation signs only. For example, 16 minus 12 divided by 4 is a numerical expression. Why is it not an algebraic expression? Well, it's not an algebraic expression because there are no variables. Remember, a variable is a letter. Next is the algebraic expression. An algebraic expression, the word algebraic, we said algebraic, we think of alphabet. Algebraic, alphabet, which is letters. We think of algebraic, we think of algebraic, we think of letters, which is our variables. And here is an example of an algebraic expression. It's algebraic. Why is this algebraic? It is algebraic because there is a variable here. And remember, one of the big things about expressions do not have equal signs. There are no equal signs in expressions. All right, let's get down to the heart and soul of this lesson. We're going to be using substitution to evaluate some of these expressions. I'm so excited. Let's take a look. So what is this word substitution? When it says substitution, it means to replace. We're going to replace a variable with the value of a number. So number 1 reads 3x plus 6 when x is equal to 3. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite it. Instead of writing the x, I'm going to write 3. However, I'm going to multiply it by the 3. Notice that I'm going to put parentheses around the x first, and then when I substitute the 3 for the x, I'm multiplying, and then I can finish with my 6 here. So what exactly does that mean? 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 6, and my final answer is 15. One of the biggest mistakes that boys and girls seem to make when using substitution is something that Mrs. Gelderman and I called drop and plop. And you might say, what is drop and plop? That sounds awful. Well, it is awful. You definitely do not want to be dropping and plopping. Here's what that means. It means that sometimes boys and girls will do this. Well, it's 3x plus 6, and I see that x is equal to 3. Oh, I know this. And what they do by mistake is they drop the 3 in for the x, and they make it 33 plus 6. That is not correct. That is what we call a drop and plop. You want to definitely not do that. It means that you have to go back and look at it, put the parentheses around the variable, and then you substitute the variable and multiply. So be very careful. If you hear Mrs. Gelderman or I talking about dropping and plopping, that's what it means. It also means don't do it. Let's try number 2, x plus 5x when x is equal to 3. So I see that the value of x is going to be equal to 3. So how will that look when I set up my problem? Well, I'm going to use substitution, so I know if x is equal to 3, I'm going to make this 3 plus 5 times 3. Because when I have a variable next to a number, that means to multiply. If I continue here, I follow the order of operations. 5 plus 3 is 15. 5 times 3 is 15, and 3 plus 15, my final answer is 18. On this page, we're going to do some practice. We are going to be evaluating each expression. So what we will do is we will do the odd ones together, or I will model, and then your homework tonight, part of your homework is going to be the even problems and some additional practice problems for translating from a different page. Please refer to the Google Classroom, and that'll tell you what page it's going to be on. All right, let's take a look at problem number 1. Evaluate each expression. Number 1 is x to the second minus 1 when x is going to be equal to 4. One of the things you will notice, we will be giving you the value, you will be given the value of the variable. So if it's x squared minus 1, x squared, the value of x is now 4. So we're going to make this 4 squared minus 1. That is a numerical expression. You know how to do that. 4 squared is 16 minus 1. Your final answer is 15, and you're good to go. Try number 3 on your own. Pause the video and try it on your own. And for this problem, you can see that the answer was 96. Well, how did I get that? 100 minus x squared, the value of x for this problem was 2. We substitute the value for the variable, so we made it 2 to the second power. And then we follow the order of operations. And we got our final answer of 96. Now let's look at number 5. Number 5 we're going to do together. This problem is notorious for being very tricky. So we have 4x to the second power plus 2, or 4x squared plus 2. In this particular problem, the value of x is 4. Remember, in every problem, the value of the variables will be different, and that's always given to you in the problems. So now, in this problem, when you have a variable next to a number, next to its coefficient, or copilot as we've called it, you have to be sure. I always like to suggest to my students, put the parentheses around the variable, because right away that reminds me that I have to multiply. So in this case, I have x squared. It's not that I'm multiplying the coefficient times the variable and then putting it to the second power. It really is 4 times x squared plus 2. I am taking an extra step, so I make sure that I get that variable away from the coefficient. Now I'm going to substitute 4 times 4 squared plus 2. 4 squared is 16. Check this out. It's 4 times 16 plus 2. 4 times 16 gets me 64 plus 2, and my final answer is 66. Again, be careful when you see a problem like this where you have a variable next to a number with an exponent. The exponent goes with the variable, unless there were parentheses there first. We'll handle those as we go along. Alrighty, pause the video. Look at problem number 7. This should be pretty basic for you. Try number 7 on your own. Pause the video. Number 7 was basic. Your answer was 1. Let's move on down to problem number 9. Problem number 9 is set up for you when x is equal to 6. Try that one on your own. Pause the video, see how you do. After you evaluate, your final answer for number 9 is 5. Take a look now for your homework. You're going to complete the rest of this page. And like I said, there'll be a couple of extra practice problems on translating. And keep in mind, there's a quiz coming up, so check your Google Classroom for those dates as well. On this page, we're going to just try a few more practicing. This was the previous lesson, translating algebraic expressions. We're going to translate the following into algebraic expressions. Let's take a look. We're going to focus on the odds. I will do a couple with you, and then you try the rest. Pause the video as you go along. Number 1 says add 30 to a number C. Well, I know I'm using addition here for this one. I know I'm using addition, but it's telling me to add 30 to a number C. So C would go first because I am adding 30. So my final answer would be C plus 30. Next, number 3, a number n times 18. Well, I know I'm going to be using multiplication for this one because it's times. But what happens when we have a variable multiplied by a number? And we talked about this in class. I'll give you a hint. The number 18 is going to be the co-pilot. Well, it's really the coefficient. So how would that look? Write it down before I do. If you need to pause, pause. All right, let's look. The answer would be 18n. If you got it, good for you. You got this. Number 5, a number W increased by 31. Well, what happens when we increase something? When we increase something, it gets bigger. So in this case, your answer would be addition. Well, your operation is addition, and it would be W plus 31. Good job. I'm going to ask you to try the rest of the odd problems on this page just so you get a little bit more practice. It'll only take you a few minutes. Try all of them first, and then if you hit play again, all of the answers will come up. But please try it on your own so that you can check your own work. Remember, we have a quiz coming up. And there you have your first set of answers. And if we just continue and scroll down, there are the rest. Awesome effort. Have a great day.